a moment in life when you have to make a decision, not for them, not for the applause, not for approval, but for you. A moment where you stand tall, straighten your crown, and say, I refuse to be used. See, some of us have spent years bending, breaking, and shrinking just to fit into someone else's idea of who we should be. We've allowed people to pull from our strength without ever pouring back into us. We've let relationships define us, opportunities confine us, and expectations refine us into someone we don't even recognize. But today we wake up. Today we reclaim what we let slip through our fingers, because here's the truth. When you don't know your worth, you'll settle for being an accessory in someone else's story. You'll accept manipulation as love, control as concern, and exploitation as opportunity. But the moment you step into awareness, when you realize that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, you stop being a pawn in someone else's game. I don't know who needs to hear this, but you are not a tool. You are not an option, a backup plan, or a stepping stone. You are not here to be drained, depleted, or discarded when you no longer serve their purpose. And I get it, maybe you were raised to serve, to fix, to please. Maybe you've been conditioned to believe that being chosen is more important than being cherished, but I need you to understand something. God did not call you to be used. He called you to be purposeful. And purpose doesn't beg. Purpose doesn't compromise its value for the sake of validation. Purpose doesn't let broken people determine how whole it can be. Some of you are in a season where God is trying to pull you out of what is familiar, because familiar is what keeps using you. Familiar keeps convincing you that this is the best it will ever be. But let me tell you something. Just because you've always been used doesn't mean you always have to be. It's time to break the cycle. It's time to set some boundaries. It's time to say no without guilt, to love yourself without conditions, and to walk away without an explanation. Because the next level of your life, the one God has prepared for you, it requires you to stop being drained by people who only come around when they need something. It requires you to stop being an unpaid therapist, an emotional punching bag, a doormat for people who only know how to take. It requires you to choose healing over history. So today I need you to declare it with me. I refuse to be used. I refuse to let people, circumstances, or my past dictate my future. I refuse to be bound by what was when I know that what's coming is greater. You are more than what they've done to you. You are more than the labels they've placed on you. You are more than the cycle you thought you couldn't break. So rise up, take back your power, walk in your purpose, and never ever let yourself be used again. You were not created to be a tool for someone else's convenience. You are not here simply to serve someone else's vision, to be drained of your energy, or to be molded into whatever version of yourself is easiest for others to digest. Too often people will try to place us in roles that benefit them without ever considering what is best for us. They will pull from our strength when they are weak, borrow our light when they are dim, and lean on our wisdom when they refuse to seek their own. And if we're not careful, we will mistake their dependence for love, their need for us, as proof of our importance. But being needed and being valued are not the same thing. From the moment we step into relationships, friendships, careers, and even ministry, we find ourselves navigating expectations that were never designed for us to carry. Some of us were raised to be the strong ones, the ones who always show up, the ones who give without hesitation and love without limits. And while strength is a gift, it can also become a burden when it is not honored. We begin to find our identity in how well we serve others, in how much we can give before we break, and how much of ourselves we can sacrifice to keep the peace. But the danger in that is we begin to disappear in the process. We become so accustomed to being a resource that we forget we too are worthy of receiving. People will take advantage of your kindness when they know you don't set limits. They will drain you of your energy when they know you won't say no. They will continue to pull on you as long as you allow yourself to be accessible without boundaries. And sometimes it's not even intentional. It's just human nature to keep going back to what works. If they know you'll always be there, always pick up the pieces, always say yes, then why would they ever stop? It is up to you to recognize when you are no longer being appreciated but being used. The tricky part is that being used doesn't always feel like harm in the beginning. It can look like opportunity, connection, responsibility, things that seem good on the surface. But over time, you start to notice the imbalance. you start to feel the weight of being poured out without being replenished. You realize that your time, your energy, your gifts are being consumed but rarely considered. And if you do not pay attention, you will wake up one day exhausted, wondering how you got here, wondering why you feel empty, wondering why the same people who depended on you never thought to check if you were okay. You were never meant to be someone's backup plan, someone's convenience, someone's easy access to strength. You were created with purpose, with intentionality, with a calling that extends far beyond being at the disposal of others. You are not a tool. You are not an option. You are not replaceable. Just because you've been used before doesn't mean you have to stay in that pattern. Life has a way of shaping us through our experiences, molding our perspectives, and sometimes trapping us in cycles we don't even realize we're repeating. When you've spent years being taken for granted, manipulated, or overlooked, it's easy to believe that this is just the way things are. You start to normalize the feeling of being drained, of giving more than you receive, of bending so much for others that you forget what it feels like to stand tall for yourself. But what you've been through does not have to dictate where you are going. Many of us have mistaken survival for purpose. We have confused endurance with destiny. We tell ourselves that as long as we can handle it, we should. As long as we can keep pushing, keep showing up, keep holding things together, then that must mean we're doing something right. But survival mode is not your final destination. Just because you've learned how to function in dysfunction doesn't mean you have to stay there. There is more for you than being someone else's lifeline. There is more for you than being the person who is always expected to understand, to forgive, to sacrifice. The truth is, when you've been used for so long, it can be difficult to imagine a different way of living. You start to believe that your value is connected to what you provide, that your worth is determined by how much you can withstand. And so you continue the cycle, not because you want to, but because it's what you know. Breaking the cycle requires a new mindset. It requires you to unlearn the habits that kept you in a place of depletion. It requires you to challenge the idea that being needed is the same as being loved. It forces you to face the discomfort of change, to step outside of the familiar, and to ask yourself if you are truly happy with the way things are. This is not an easy process. It means disappointing people who have benefited from your lack of boundaries. It means setting limits with those who are used to you always saying yes. It means choosing yourself in moments where you would have normally chosen everyone else. And that can feel foreign, even selfish, when you have spent years prioritizing others. But staying in the same cycle will never lead to growth. You cannot heal in the same environment that broke you. You cannot find freedom while still tethered to the things that drained you. You have to be willing to walk away from what no longer serves you, even if it means walking alone for a season. You have to trust that there is life beyond the pattern you've always known, because patterns, no matter how deeply ingrained, can be broken. Cycles, no matter how long they've lasted, can end. What happened before does not have to keep happening. What was will never have the power to define what will be unless you allow it. People will disguise control as care, and if you're not careful, you'll mistake manipulation for love. Sometimes the people who claim to have your best interests at heart are the same ones who benefit from keeping you small, uncertain, and dependent on their approval. They speak in ways that sound like protection but are really about control. They make you feel guilty for wanting more, for setting boundaries, for thinking differently than they do. And because their words are wrapped in familiarity, wrapped in concern, wrapped in what seems like love, you begin to believe them. You begin to second guess yourself, to shrink your dreams, to hesitate when you once moved with confidence. You start asking for permission when you used to walk in authority. Manipulation is subtle. It doesn't always show up as something obvious. It can look like a friend who always needs you but is never available when you need them. It can look like a partner who makes you feel like you have to prove your worth through sacrifice. It can look like a family member who reminds you of everything they've done for you anytime you try to stand on your own. It can look like a leader who only supports you when your success benefits them. Manipulation doesn't just come from enemies. It often comes from the people closest to us, the ones we trust, the ones who know exactly what to say to make us stay in a place that serves them. Discernment is necessary. Without it, you will keep mistaking manipulation for love, obligation for loyalty, and guilt for responsibility. You will continue to feel indebted to people who were only ever meant to be temporary lessons. You will keep giving the benefit of the doubt to those who have already shown you their patterns. Recognizing manipulation requires you to pay attention to how you feel after certain conversations, to notice when someone's presence brings more confusion than clarity, to be honest about whether their words build you up or tear you down. Real love empowers. Real love encourages growth, even when it's inconvenient. Real love does not require you to lose yourself to keep it. There are people who will only support you as long as you stay within the version of yourself that benefits them. The moment you begin to evolve, to challenge old dynamics, to step into the fullness of who you were created to be, their tone shifts. What was once encouragement turns into doubt. What was once support turns into criticism. And what once felt like love begins to feel like a burden. That is not care. That is control. And control is not love. Breaking free from manipulation means no longer allowing people to speak fear over your future. It means no longer entertaining conversations that make you feel small. It means no longer justifying behaviors that continuously leave you drained and doubting yourself. It requires you to stand firm in what you know to be true about yourself, even when others try to convince you otherwise. When you understand your value, you stop allowing others to determine your price. Too often people settle for less because they don't realize how much they're worth. They accept mistreatment, undervaluation, and inconsistency because somewhere along the way they started believing that's all they deserved. Maybe it was past experiences that taught them to be grateful for whatever they could get. Maybe it was relationships that made them feel like love had to be earned through suffering. Maybe it was rejection that convinced them they weren't good enough, smart enough, beautiful enough, or worthy enough to receive more. When you don't know your worth, you will negotiate your value. You will let people discount you, drain you, and label you as replaceable. But when you understand who you are, you stop settling for anything beneath what aligns with your purpose. There is a difference between humility and self-neglect. Humility says, I am confident in who I am without the need to prove it to others. Self-neglect says, I will take whatever I can get because I don't believe I'm worthy of more. Some people were never taught to expect more, so they don't ask for it. They don't set boundaries because they fear pushing people away. They don't demand respect because they don't want to be seen as difficult. They don't walk away from toxic relationships because they would rather have something broken than have nothing at all. But knowing your worth changes that. It shifts your posture. It teaches you to stop trying to convince people to see your value and start surrounding yourself with those who already recognize it. People will always try to define you based on their own perspective, their own experiences, and sometimes their own insecurities. They will tell you what you can and cannot do based on their own limitations. They will project their fears onto you and make you feel like you are asking for too much when you are simply asking for what is fair. But when you know your worth, you no longer seek validation from those who were never meant to define you in the first place. You stop letting the opinions of people who don't even understand their own purpose dictate the way you live your life. Knowing your worth means refusing to shrink yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. It means walking away from people who expect your loyalty but never reciprocate it. It means recognizing when you are overextending yourself for someone who would not do the same for you. It means no longer tolerating anything that compromises your peace, your joy, or your dignity. It means realizing that love, respect, and kindness are not things you have to beg for. They are things you should naturally receive from the people who are truly meant to be in your life. You teach people how to treat you by what you accept. If you continue to allow disrespect, it will persist. If you continue to compromise your standards, they will keep lowering. If you continue to overextend yourself for those who do not appreciate you, they will keep taking. Recognizing your worth means no longer allowing others to dictate what you deserve. It means walking in the confidence that you were created for more than just being tolerated. You were created to be valued, honored, and cherished. Don't let temporary validation distract you from eternal purpose. It is easy to get caught up in the need for approval, to seek affirmation from people who only acknowledge your value when it benefits them. The world teaches us to chase recognition, to measure our worth by how many people applaud us, follow us, or celebrate us. But the danger in living for validation is that it makes you dependent on something that was never meant to sustain you. When you live for the approval of others, you give them the power to control your confidence, your decisions, and your sense of direction. You begin to shape your identity around what people like, what they expect, and what makes them comfortable, instead of standing firm in who you were created to be. Validation is deceptive because it feels like affirmation. It feels like proof that you're on the right path, that you're making an impact, that you're finally being seen. But validation is inconsistent. It shifts with opinions, trends, and circumstances. One day people are cheering for you, and the next they have moved on to someone else. One moment they are in love with what you bring to the table, and the next they are criticizing you for not being enough. If your confidence is rooted in people's approval, you will always be chasing something that can never fully satisfy you. You will always be adjusting yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold you. You will always be compromising your purpose to accommodate those who were never called to walk with you in the first place. Purpose does not require validation. It does not wait for applause. It does not shrink in the absence of recognition, and it does not fade when people fail to acknowledge it. Purpose is something deeper, something that cannot be taken away simply because people no longer approve of you. Purpose is what remains when the crowds are gone, when the spotlight fades, when the support disappears. It is the thing that keeps calling you even when no one else sees the vision. It is the reason you keep going when there is no one there to encourage you. It is what separates those who are truly committed from those who are only in it for the attention. Distractions will always come disguised as opportunities. They will make you believe that success is about being seen, that impact is about numbers, that fulfillment is about how many people recognize your name. But true purpose is not about how many people know you. It is about how many lives are changed because of what you carry. It is about being faithful even when no one is watching. It is about staying true to who you are even when it's not popular. It is about refusing to trade long-term purpose for short-term validation. Temporary recognition will never compare to the fulfillment that comes from walking fully in what you were created to do. If you constantly chase what is fleeting, you will miss what is eternal. Not everyone who has access to you deserves a place in your life. Too often, we let people stay connected to us out of habit, history, or obligation, even when their presence is costing us more than it's contributing. We hold on to relationships that drain us, friendships that no longer align with who we are becoming, and connections that do more harm than good, all because we don't want to seem ungrateful, disloyal, or mean. But the truth is, not everyone is meant to go where you're going. Not everyone can handle the version of you that is growing, healing, and evolving. And if you are constantly making space for people who do not honor, support, or respect you, then you are keeping yourself from making space for those who actually will. Boundaries are not just about keeping people out. They are about protecting what is within. They are about recognizing when someone's presence is disrupting your peace, draining your energy, or delaying your progress. Some people are not in your life because they genuinely love or support you. They are there because of what they can gain, what they can take, or what they can manipulate. They see your kindness as a weakness, your consistency as something to be used, and your loyalty as something they never have to earn. And if you are not intentional about guarding your space, you will keep allowing people to have access to you simply because they've always been there, even when their presence is doing more damage than good. Growth will always require separation. It will require you to let go of connections that keep you tied to old versions of yourself. It will require you to walk away from relationships that make you question your worth. It will require you to stop seeking approval from people who were never capable of giving it in the first place. And this is not always easy. It is hard to release people you once trusted. It is painful to acknowledge that some relationships have expiration dates. It is difficult to accept that some of the people you thought would be with you forever were only meant to be with you for a season, but holding on to the wrong people will only delay you from receiving the right ones. Not everyone who claps for you is happy for you. Not everyone who checks on you has pure intentions. Not everyone who says they love you truly knows how to. And if you are not careful, you will keep giving your time, your energy, and your heart to people who do not know how to value them. You do not have to prove your loyalty by staying connected to what is hurting you. You do not not have to keep diminishing yourself to fit into relationships that require you to be less than you are. Protecting your peace means being selective about who gets to share your space, your energy, and your heart. It means understanding that not everyone deserves access just because they ask for it. Some people only love you when you're convenient for them. They celebrate you when you're doing what they expect, when you're fitting into the role they've assigned you, when your presence makes their life easier. But the moment you begin to change, to set boundaries, to choose yourself, their tone shifts. They start questioning your loyalty, making you feel guilty for prioritizing your peace, acting as if your growth is a betrayal. But love that only exists when it's convenient is not love at all. Real love sees you even when you're no longer serving someone else's interests. Real love respects your boundaries, honors your needs, and makes room for your evolution. It is easy to mistake convenience for connection. When people rely on you, when they turn to you for advice, when they come to you for support, it can feel like love. It can feel like you matter, like you are important, like you have a place in their life. But love is not just about how much someone needs you. It is about how much they value you even when they don't need anything from you at all. If someone's affection fades the moment you stop being convenient for them, then it was never love. It was just access. It was just the comfort of knowing you would always be there, always available, always saying yes, even when it cost you. People will make you feel selfish for prioritizing yourself when they've gotten used to you neglecting yourself. They will say you've changed, that you're acting differently, that you're not as supportive as you used to be. But what they really mean is that you are no longer allowing them to benefit from your lack of boundaries. You are no longer overextending yourself just to make sure they're comfortable. You are no longer allowing guilt to keep you in places that drain you. And that is not selfishness, that is self-respect. That is realizing that your worth is not determined by how much you can sacrifice for people who would never do the same for you. The people who truly love you will not leave when you start setting boundaries. They will not disappear when you start valuing yourself. They will not become distant when you start choosing your peace over their convenience. Real love doesn't demand that you deplete yourself to prove your loyalty. It doesn't require you to be less of who you are just to fit into someone else's expectations. It allows room for growth, for change, for healing, for becoming the version of yourself that you were always meant to be. If someone's love is dependent on how much you give, on how much you sacrifice, on how much you inconvenience yourself for their benefit, then it is not love. It is control. And you were not created to be controlled, to be used, to be kept in a space where you are only valued for what you can provide. Love is not meant to be conditional. It is not meant to disappear the moment you start standing up for yourself. Pain from the past should teach you, not trap you. Too many people are walking around carrying wounds that were never meant to be permanent. They have built their identity around what hurt them, allowing past betrayals, disappointments, and losses to define who they are and how they see the world. When you have been mistreated, abandoned, or used, it is easy to start believing that pain is just a part of life, that hurt is inevitable, that trust is dangerous. But pain was never meant to be a place where you settle. It was meant to be a lesson, a teacher, a moment that refines you rather than a weight that keeps you bound. Some people have been trapped in cycles of pain for so long that they don't even recognize it anymore. They think being guarded is the same as being strong. They think pushing people away is the same as protecting themselves. They think avoiding love, relationships, and opportunities is the same as being wise. But healing doesn't come from avoidance. Healing comes from facing what happened, acknowledging the wounds, and deciding that they will no longer have the power to dictate your future. If you don't heal, you will keep repeating the same story with different characters. You will keep attracting the same kind of relationships, making the same kind of decisions, and feeling the same kind of emptiness, all because you never allowed yourself to move forward. Pain has a way of convincing you that you are stuck, that this is just the way things are, that nothing better is coming. It tells you that no one can be trusted, that love is too risky, that dreaming is pointless. It whispers lies that keep you small, keep you fearful, keep you from stepping into the fullness of who you were created to be. But pain is not your identity. What happened to you is not the final word over your life. The betrayal, the rejection, the abandonment. Those were moments, not definitions. They were chapters, not the entire book. And the moment you stop allowing pain to shape your decisions, your relationships, and your sense of self-worth, you begin to reclaim your life. You are not weak for having been hurt. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not damaged goods just because someone failed to see your value. Healing doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means refusing to let it control you. It means using the lessons instead of letting them use you. It means taking what you've been through and allowing it to strengthen you instead of allowing it to silence you. Every painful experience has the potential to make you wiser, more compassionate, more aware, but it is your choice whether you let it teach you or trap you. It is your choice whether you carry the weight of your past or you learn how to rise above it. Pain will always try to convince you that moving forward isn't possible. But you were never meant to stay in the place where you were broken. You cannot heal in the same environment that broke you. Too often people try to find peace while staying in the very places that stole it. They try to rebuild their confidence while surrounding themselves with the same voices that tore it down. They try to grow while remaining connected to people who are invested in keeping them small. But real healing requires separation. It requires you to remove yourself from the spaces, relationships, and cycles that keep reopening the wounds you are trying to close. You cannot become the best version of yourself while staying tied to what destroyed the last version of you. Healing is not just about fixing what is broken. It is about protecting what is being restored. Some people are trying to heal while still engaging in the same toxic conversations, entertaining the same harmful relationships, and believing the same lies that created their pain in the first place. They wonder why they still feel stuck, why the wounds never fully close, why they keep experiencing the same disappointments over and over again. But healing cannot happen in an environment that continues to break you. It cannot flourish in a place where you are constantly reminded of your past, constantly forced to defend your growth, constantly made to feel like you are not enough. Sometimes the hardest part of healing is realizing that not everyone around you wants to see you whole. Some people benefit from your brokenness. They feel more secure when you are insecure. They feel more powerful when you are unsure of yourself. They feel more in control when you depend on their validation. And as long as you stay in environments where people only love you when you are struggling, you will always find yourself fighting battles you were never meant to fight. Some people do not want to see you heal because a whole version of you would no longer tolerate what a broken version of you accepted. Healing demands that you make difficult choices. It asks you to walk away from familiar places, to distance yourself from people you once trusted, to leave behind everything that keeps you bound to an old version of yourself. And this is not easy. It is painful to outgrow environments that once felt like home. It is difficult to step into the unknown when you have been conditioned to settle. It is uncomfortable to change when you are surrounded by people who want you to stay the same. But true healing will always require a shift. It will always require a moment where you decide that your future is worth more than your history. You were not created to live in a cycle of brokenness. You were not meant to spend your life patching up wounds just so people around you can feel comfortable. Your healing is your responsibility. And part of that responsibility is making sure you are in an environment that nurtures growth instead of hindering it. You cannot become who you are meant to be while remaining in the places that broke who you used to be. You were not created to be overlooked, undervalued, or ignored. Too many people have learned to live in the background, to dim their light, to shrink themselves to make others comfortable. They have spent years making themselves small, believing that humility means hiding, that being low mental means being silent, that being easy to love means never taking up space. But you were never meant to live unseen. You were never meant to settle for being an afterthought, for accepting less than what you deserve, for waiting on permission to fully exist. You were created to stand, to thrive, to walk boldly in your purpose without apology. Playing small does not protect you. It does not keep you safe from rejection. It does not shield you from disappointment. It does not make people love you more. All it does is teach you to betray yourself. It teaches you to quiet your voice when you should be speaking, to lower your standards when you should be raising them, to tolerate things that should have never been an option. When you constantly make yourself small for the sake of others, you end up living a life that is beneath your calling. You end up trapped in relationships where you are barely acknowledged, jobs where your potential is ignored, friendships where you are always giving but never receiving. The people who truly value you will not ask you to shrink. They will not make you feel guilty for having standards, for knowing your worth, for walking in confidence. They will celebrate your presence instead of merely tolerating it. They will respect your voice instead of dismissing it. They will make room for you instead of making you feel like you have to beg to belong. You do not have to beg for a seat at a table where you were never meant to sit. You do not have to fight to be noticed by people who refuse to see you. You do not have to prove your worth to anyone who was never meant to carry the weight of recognizing it in the first place. Choosing to no longer be overlooked is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is deciding that you will no longer be passive about your purpose. It is choosing to walk in rooms like you belong there instead of waiting for someone to tell you that you do. It is recognizing that you are enough as you are without having to prove or perform or bend yourself into something you are not. It is understanding that your presence matters. The moment you stop waiting for validation, the moment you stop seeking permission to be who you are, the moment you decide to fully show up in your own life, that is the moment everything shifts. You were not designed to blend into the background, to be an afterthought, to exist in the shadows of your own life. You were meant to shine, to take up space, to live unapologetically in the fullness of who you were created to be. You have spent too much time giving away your power, settling for less, and allowing others to dictate your worth. But today you make a decision. Today you refuse to be used. You refuse to be manipulated by temporary validation, by relationships that only take, by environments that do not nurture your growth. You refuse to stay bound by the pain of your past, to keep repeating cycles that were never meant to define you. You refuse to make yourself small so others can feel comfortable, to stay silent when your voice was meant to be heard, to keep giving access to people who do not deserve it. This is the moment you reclaim your identity, your purpose, your worth. This is the moment you choose healing over history, purpose over popularity, self-respect over convenience. This is the moment you remind yourself that you were never created to be anyone's afterthought, anyone's second option, anyone's convenient. You are not here to be used, overlooked, or undervalued. You are here to walk in boldness, to take up space, to live a life that reflects the greatness inside you. And when you finally stop waiting for permission, when you finally choose yourself, when you finally refuse to be used, that is when you step into everything you were always meant to be.